Hello again. My name is Evie, and this is episode 2 of my Girl Scout Gold Award webinar, Be a Sister to Every Scout. In this episode, we're going to be talking about 3 different spectrums: sex, sexuality, and gender. One quick thing before we jump in, I have to be a little vague about how I talk about these spectrums, as I'm talking about a wide variety of different sexuality and gender labels. When I talk about these spectrums, the next episode will outline some of the specific terminology used in the queer community, and I'll make sure to refer back to the spectrums when I do that. So first, sex. It might confuse you that sex, male or female, that you're assigned at birth, is on this list. In our society, sex is seen as a very binary concept. You're one or the other. But sex is determined not only by genitalia, but a checklist of factors: hormones, chromosomes, and genitalia, among others. It's perfectly possible for a person to contain both female and male sex markers. The term for this is called intersex. It's estimated that 1.7% of the population is intersex, which might not seem like a lot, but it's also about the same chance you have to be a redhead. Secondly, gender. Sex and gender are also sometimes seen as synonymous, so I have to start by separating the two. Sex is assigned at birth and is determined only by physical characteristics. Gender, on the other hand, is determined by identity to masculinity, femininity, androgyny, or some combination thereof. Because of all these varying factors, a linear spectrum, like one end and one end, doesn't capture the concept of gender identity very well. Honestly, I don't think it's possible to articulate it with a 2D shape in general, but it's at least a start. So I made a little triangle. It should be like over here. Each point of the triangle is associated with one type of identity. For example, the bottom right corner is masculinity, which would include both cisgender and transgender men. If you don't know what those terms mean, don't worry, we'll get to it in the next episode. And gender isn't mutually exclusive either. A gender may incorporate elements of androgyny and masculinity, masculinity and femininity, androgyny and femininity, or all three, etc., etc. One last note on gender. Gender identity and gender expression don't always align. Gender expression is pretty much exactly what it sounds like, how you would express your gender. This can be through clothes, makeup or lack thereof, accessories, hair, nails, etc. What is culturally described as a tomboy, me, is a perfect example of this concept, as it is a feminine identity with a masculine expression. So I was editing and I realized that my footage cut off, so hi again. Fortunately, it kind of cut off at a convenient spot for me. We were just starting to talk about the sexuality spectrum. Now, the sexuality spectrum isn't actually all that different from the gender spectrum. Fortunately for me, I didn't have to make 2 graphics. The difference between the gender and the sexuality spectrum is that instead of aligning with masculinity, femininity, or androgyny, or somewhere in the middle, it's attraction to either masculinity, femininity, androgyny, or some combination of that. And the sexuality spectrum adds in one more element just for fun: the difference between romantic and sexual attraction. These 2 types of attractions are often lumped together, which kind of makes sense, as most people experience them simultaneously. However, there is a difference between the 2. Romantic attraction is the desire to be in a relationship with a person. That's all your cute date ideas and Valentine's Day, basically. And then sexual attraction is, fortunately for me, you can put sexual and romantic attraction on a linear spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, you have absolutely no attraction ever, and at the other end of the spectrum, you experience attraction regularly, and then as you go up, you experience attraction more and more. And this goes for both romantic and sexual attraction. A final note on sexual and romantic attraction: just because someone doesn't experience that type of attraction doesn't mean they won't participate in the practice. Some would be categorized as sex repulsed or romance repulsed, and they don't want anything to do with it. Stay away from me, ew, kissing, cooties. And some people would be on the opposite end of that spectrum and be sex or romance positive and don't mind participating in it at all, or they could fall somewhere in between. Alright, that was a lot of information to absorb. don't worry if these abstract concepts didn't quite stick. In the next video, we're going to be talking about specific terminology, and I think that will help click together any missing pieces that I didn't get to cover in this episode. So, hope to see you then!